Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today's story is called The Pig Bank from Hans Christian Andersen. There were such a lot of toys in the nursery, and standing on top of the cupboard was a money box, which was made of earthenware, in the shape of a pig. It had a natural slot in its back, which had been made bigger with a knife, so that half-crowns could go into it. And in fact 2 of these had already gone in, besides a lot of smaller coins. The pig bank was stuffed so full that he couldn't rattle any more, and that is the very height of a pig bank's ambition. So there he stood, up on top of the shelf, looking down on everything in the room, and knowing that with what he had inside him, he could buy up the whole lot, and that's something. And that, too, was what the rest of them thought, only they didn't say so. They had other things to talk about. The drawer was standing halfway open, and a big doll inside it got up. Rather old she was, and with a rivet in her neck, and looking up she said, "Let's all play at being people. That'll always be something." And what a commotion there was then. The very pictures on the wall turned round, showing they had backs to them, though not for the sake of contradicting. It was the middle of the night, and the moon shone in at the window, giving a light for nothing. The game was about to begin, and everyone had been invited, including even the perambulator, though that was one of the commoner playthings. "We're all good in our way," it said. "You can't all belong to the gentry. Some people have to make themselves useful, as the saying goes." The pig bank was the only one to get a written invitation, being too high up, they thought, to be got by word of mouth, and he never replied to say if he was coming, because he wouldn't come. If he was to be in at it, he would have to enjoy it from home. They would have to make the best of that, and so they did. The little puppet theater was set up at once in such a way that he could look straight into it. They were going to begin with a play, to be followed by tea and intelligent talk, only when they started off straight away on this, with the rocking horse talking of training and thoroughbreds, and the perambulator of railways and steam power, all, of course, a part of their trade and things which they could talk about. The clock talked of politics, and knew what time of day it was, though they did say that it was backward. The walking stick bragged of its ferule and silver knob being well off both at the top and the bottom. And on the sofa lay 2 embroidered cushions that were pretty and foolish. And so it was time for the play to start. Everybody sat watching it, and they had all been asked to bang and thump and smack as they felt inclined. But the riding whip said that he never cracked for old people, and only for those not engaged to be married. "I bang for everything," cried the bombshell. "You have to be somewhere," thought the spittoon. That was what they were all thinking as they watched the play. The piece was no good, though it was well performed, with all the actors showing their painted sides. You could only look at them on one side and not from the back. And so they all played very well, right up at the front of the theater. Their strings were too long for them, but then that made them all the easier to see. The doll with the rivet in her was so fascinated that her rivet came loose, and the pig was so fascinated in his own way that he decided to do something for one of them, and include him in his will as the one to lie beside him in his open grave when the time came. It was such a treat that they gave up the idea of having tea and stuck to the intelligent talk, which is what they called playing at being people. And there was no malice meant, because they were only playing. And they all thought of themselves and what the pig bank was thinking, and the pig bank thought the longest, because he was thinking of his will and funeral and when that would be. Always it was before you expected. Crack! There lay the one from on top of the cupboard, down on the floor, in little bits and pieces, while the coins went skipping and dancing, the little ones spinning around and the big ones rolling, especially the half-crown, which was intent on getting into the world. And that's what he did, and that's what they all did, while the broken bits at the pig bank went into the dustbin. But on the cupboard the next day stood a new pig bank of earthenware. So far there were no coins in it, and so it couldn't rattle either, in which it resembled the other one. That was always the beginning. And with that, we will end. The Pig Bank from Hans Christian Andersen. Thank you so much for listening. Good night, everybody.